One, we're recording. Hi, Trish.
Hi, Kim.
How are you today?
Pretty darn good.
Yeah, you're at Embellish, your salon in Tacoma?
I am. I'm in the energy space. There's clients today, so I wasn't by myself. I thought, oh, I have a nice little room we can use. And there's
Wonderful.
Laura.
So Trish is joining me here today. She's the other half of Unicorn Way and True North, and well, we have many other hashtags coming, but True North, our series on YouTube on Unicorn Way, is interviewing people that we feel exemplify are living their true north, divine mission, divine purpose, divine timing. And so Trish and I wanted to share our true north stories. So this is Trish's. And my dogs, I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted. My dogs are running around, decided that they wanted to play right now.
Tune. Hello, Tunya. Hello, Annie.
They both perked up their ears.
Sonora says hello.
Hi, Sonora. Hers is like the best sidekick. Like, she just wants to be, she's your girl.
She just wants me.
Yeah.
She's giving me so much love.
Tuna doesn't like to be picked up because she's got the Basset Hound body. So she wiggles and she doesn't like to be held, but she'll jump in your lap and then she wants to be loved. But Sonora, boy, she's such a welcome.
She's a cuddler.
She's such a welcome addition. She's so happy to have a forever mom.
I know.
I couldn't be more happy for
both.
For
those of you who don't know, I adopted her about 3 weeks, a month ago in Bisbee. She found me. I had no intention of having another animal, and she said, I think you should be mine.
Yeah, there was no questioning that serendipity at all. So Trish, I'll just let you kind of just take the lead. And again, you know, this is about our True North journey. When did it start? What is it like for you? What has it been like for you? We'll just start there.
Well, thank you. As you were talking about people who exemplify their true north, I think it just really kind of hit me that although I've been bushwhacking, right, for a long time to get to this trail, I think I'm finally right now as we speak in this time of my life stepping onto
True North,
the trail to my true north and to me, because I was thinking about it this morning, and you know, Unicorn Way is all about, you know, us creating a platform for people to find the inner unicorn, right? It's not about fairy dust and sparkly farts and, you know, all that, you know, fancy schmancy unicorn stuff. It's really the magic within ourselves. And which is why it's YOU, right? So today it kind of hit me. I went, oh, this is what it feels like to finally be on my path. And part of that is that so many things are falling off right now. You know, you and I have been going through the last few, 2019 has been a pretty tough year, but for both of us, but in the last few months, we've really realized that it, you know, through Scorpio energy and stuff, that it's about the death of a lot of things. Ideas, expectations, you know, attachments to relationships, attachments to identities. That's been a huge one for me, and that one's really coming to an end right now with the salon. So I think I'm pretty close to the idea of what an exit strategy looks like, and it's going to be very quick.
So for those of you that don't know, Trish has a hair salon. It's not just your average hair salon in Tacoma called Embellish. And she's been working on this business. It's gone through many stages. And Trish is, from the second I met her, I loved her business instincts. I loved her ability to be in truth, tell the truth, be open to more information and changing her truth. But I know that Embellish has been such a part of your heart, and because Trish is she's a staple in Tacoma. Like she's ran for city council, is that right?
Yeah, in 2013.
Yeah, and so she's really made an impact in the community and really cares about community and the culture of businesses and the culture of where she lives and how she can contribute to that with the culture of her own business. She also has a business called Craft It, which helps people really craft the culture of their business and their life. So I'll add that backstory for you.
Thank you.
But you're getting ready to now go full-time into Bisbee, where she owns a home, and really pursue new chapters in your life.
Yeah. It's become very apparent to me. Well, it's been knocking at my door for a while. Our paths converged because we're on a spiritual path of finding our true north and of finding what resonates with us and our
being
highest
of service.
Being of service and our highest form of love and the energy of Christ and God and the elements and the earth. And Embellish has been around for 17 years. I started it in 2003 with $10,000 of severance from a corporate education job. The company had been acquired twice. And finally, the third acquisition was Procter & Gamble, and 150 of us lost our jobs education-wise across the United States. So I took that money and opened up a little salon in 2003 on the corner of 6th and St. Helens in an old Carbonado sandstone building that actually was owned by my husband's Uncle Bob. And it was quite an iconic building in Tacoma. And then from there we moved. My husband and I bought a huge commercial building on Market Street that was an old meat packing plant that serendipitously his father had cut meat in the 60s. And so we turned this empty 10,000 square foot CMU concrete building into our home in the 2 middle floors and my salon on the top floor and the juice bar down below. And for a period of time, there was a little market that we called Market on Market, where we had local producers and stuff like that. And so I guess I could be called the serial entrepreneur, continually, moving the ideas forward. And my husband used to always say, all we are short of time is time and money, because it's so many ideas and so many things going. But, it's tough. Being a business person and is hard, and especially
getting tougher now even.
Yeah. So Embellish 17 years later, you're right. I've had to be truthful, had to learn to be truthful over the years about when things didn't work, about when things were my fault, when I wasn't a great boss, when I was putting all my heart into it, when I was putting too much into it. And so it's been through every iteration that you can think of, between lease, employee, commission versus team-based pay. I mean, we've tried it all. Mm-hmm. And the hair industry is in itself a very volatile industry. And the business models that we have just, are proving not to work very well. Culture crafting came about halfway through my 17 years of being a boss, when I realized that I went to a business seminar and I heard the statement that the fish stinks from the head up. And that means if I have shitty employees and broken systems and things that are happening, I have to look inward. And so that was my first, point of, really taking accountability and looking inward. And I started creating strong core values. And then I created a strong, vision. And I created a strong mission. And I was realizing all of these pieces that they go together, and the stuff in between that created what ended up being this unspoken, intangible credo that everybody who was supposed to be in my organization resonated with and protected. Mm-hmm. And so that gave birth to what was called culture crafting. Because I realized that what we had done was we created a very, very strong culture, and that was rising above any problems in the business climate. And
so you were coaching before coaching was whatever coaching has become. I know you and I don't like this whole kind of coaching thing, but for reasons that maybe we'll get into at a different time. But you know, you were ahead of the curve, and I think that's one of the reasons that you and I really have always resonated is our stories. We have very kind of parallel lives in a lot of ways, and
so many ways,
and ahead of the curve. And
back to the very beginning, you know, how ironic is it that you and I both entered the planet and spent time in an incubator? You know what I mean? Like we came in,
and both Leos,
incubators, not bonding with parents, you know, fighting our way out of a paper bag, you know, beating up the world. And, you know, we share a lot of the same beliefs, but one of my beliefs is, that I signed up for this journey this time around. And this has been all about, well, I love the word that you use a lot, and it's about sovereignty. And it's one of those words that's probably going to get overused very soon here. But being a manifester in human design and learning that as a manifester, I really don't need anybody else, which is ironic because my whole journey has been about feeling, abandoned, right? Like, okay, there's all this abandonment. And, as a Leo who divorced and left a marriage of 18 years in 2014, I'm on my floor in a puddle of tears in the fetal position going, is this what I wanted? Like, I'm alone. And, realizing the level of codependency that what appears to be a strong, female Leo, doing it all on her own, like, is just crumbling, realizing how much importance and value I put on other people and on my relationships with other people and my relationships to people and things.
So looking for your happiness outside of yourself and approval. And yes, you and I very much relate to this story. Yeah.
Such a crucial awareness, to have, because we take what we see or think of as strength, and we hide behind that sometimes. And that creates a lot of separation for us from other people.
And I think that goes into, the work that we talk a lot about trauma, and we live on a traumatized planet. Everybody's getting some. It's a sliding scale. Nobody's getting away from it. But what happens in early childhood attachment trauma, and how that we don't even realize that we have a child, maybe 0 to 4 inside of us, that we don't even know is absolutely having tantrums and freaking out because because we weren't taught to emotionally regulate or self-soothe. And so we're looking outward, and I'll just do more and more and more, and people please, I'll just be the best. I'll be the best. I'll work harder. I'll do more. And still we're not getting
it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Absolutely. No. It doesn't work. And generally we drive ourselves crazy and everybody around us crazy.
Right. It's just like this cycle that we just don't even know. So, into the planet in an incubator, only child, Leo, female, fundamentally Christian father and parents, controlling dad, but I watched my dad go from being kind of the boss and being this jovial, wonderful man that was funny and talented, singing wise and everything. His spirit got broken when he didn't receive the position of a junior high school choir teacher. And I was in probably, 4th grade, I think. And I didn't know it then, but that would be the impetus of, my dad's spirit just kind of going down. And when we lose who we are and we lose our spirit, we tend to become, just bitter, controlling, people. And that's where my dad ended up. My mom worked the same job for 40 plus years, in spite of a fused arthritic ankle, which then manifested in a lot of pain, you know, other things, you know, sciatica and all that sort of stuff. And toward the end, we really realized that my mom had been a pretty heavy opiate addict for years that nobody ever really, you know, paid attention to, or wanted to know. But and then she was let go from her job 18 months before retirement after being with that company for, you know, 40 some years. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I watched my dad lose his spirit in junior high. She kind of went on all the whole way, was always the breadwinner. My dad never necessarily had too much passion after that. And then, you know, toward the end, they just took everything away. The only thing from her, you know, that was kind of, that gave her, you know, value. But I took off at about 21. I was a pretty hard running kid. 16, 17, 18, you know, played with all the big boys, you know, all the wannabe drug dealers. I didn't go home for about 3 weeks once when I was 21 because a drug dealer friend had wrecked my car, and the deal was you wreck it, you bought it. And so then that forced me into getting my money back for that car through walking into unsavory situations and standing my ground and being the tough little girl, and getting actually drugs from him, but then I would have to turn around and make my money, you know, for them. So I ended up getting about $3,000 out of that debacle. And my friend and I went down to the Grand Canyon, or we went to the Sheraton for an interview. This is where my purple suit, I had this purple suede suit that my friend said, put your purple suit on, we're going to an interview. And I had never seen anything about the Grand Canyon except for the, you know, Brady Bunch and the station wagon, you know, on those episodes. And let me tell you, you cannot drive a station wagon to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. I probably would have tried. But, you know, so I ran and did a geographical at 21 with my girlfriend, and lived at the Grand Canyon for 6 months. And, you know, shortly after I was there, you know, there's that wherever you go, there you are. Because, you know, within 3-4 weeks, I was receiving, you know, UPS packages of, you know, crisscross speed, and, you know, selling them at the Grand Canyon. You know, so I was like, oh, some things don't change. But it would take me a while to figure that out. And then I moved from the Grand Canyon to Colorado with a boyfriend who I had been on a short break with because his first love or whatever was coming unannounced to visit at the Grand Canyon from the East Coast. And so I backed off for a bit. And during that week, he and her got in a Jeep accident, and he was driving and she was killed. Mm-hmm. And so I was the first one at the hospital. We decided to stay together, but I moved with him to the Grand Canyon. And this wasn't the first tragedy like that for me, because my first love in high school, Michael, was killed in a car accident when I was into my junior year. And yeah, so that's I didn't really connect those two until just now, as far as like how that felt. But I'm pretty good at you know, just like bouncing back and responding and like moving on and, you know, doing life and, you know, letting it all just like roll off my back. And so I think a lot of those things later in life I put together as traumas that I had never really, right, you know, necessarily healed with.
And I would say that that's first off, you know, now we have the internet, people are talking about why people do the things they do. Mm-hmm. And so we're hearing about trauma. I think that there are a lot of people on the planet that have no idea that they are operating with a traumatic inner guidance system. It's a traumatized guidance system.
Yeah. It sort of twists and tangles and bastardizes our natural instincts of fight or flight, right? Like we
Absolutely.
don't even know if those are like true anymore, because
and that part of our brain that makes healthy decisions, and it shrinks, foggy brain comes in. But you know, it depends on the level of trauma too. So we can just suppress stuff, but then when we get to a time in our life where we're actually safe, we still don't even recognize, like, oh, I'm behaving this way because there's trauma that I haven't dealt with.
Right. It's like a triggered response. It's like
Absolutely.
an automatic muscle, you know, that kind of goes off. And so sometimes if you do get into a, maybe say a good relationship, or you've given yourself some time to be healing, like that's almost foreign.
Yes.
Right? Because we're so used to being in situations that we have to like respond in a certain way.
And people that have experienced trauma, well, like I said, I mean, we all get a certain amount, but when you're working with people that are moving through trauma, it's very common for people to say, as soon as I got in or had a child or had an intimate relationship that was finally on the healthier side of things, that's when flashbacks start, and people have no idea that what a flashback is. There's just, they have no idea that that's what they're experiencing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So moved around a little bit, ran from myself in different geographicals. I ended up in Colorado Springs. I ended up in Colorado Springs for a year, which I absolutely detest that town as far as the energy. It's just like this huge grid with nothing but like, you know, super conservatives and military, and it just like the energy there just is kind of like, ugh. But I would find myself back there later, especially in Manitou Springs, doing some healing down my path. But I was there for a year biding time while I waited for sentencing, because at the end of my time in Colorado Springs or Steamboat Springs, I got swept up in what was called the spring cleaning. And I guess every year, pretty much some DEA agents come through town and hang out for a few months. And I ended up being friends with a golf pro that drank rum and Coke tall. And, you know, being a bartender, of course you get asked, hey, you know, can you do these things? And I was like, shit, yeah. Cause you know, if you're a girl from those side of the tracks, you figure if I do you a favor, I get some for free, you know, cause that's always the way it works. So I went through my roommates and got something from Denver, brought it back. It never even went from my hands to his hands, but, you know how all that works. So I am now a third-class felon, 30-year-old felony that keeps me from getting into Canada.
So it never drops off?
Colorado will not let you expunge your records. So that felony will follow me wherever. That's a mark that I get to, you know, to hold on to. So, so my mom and my grandma paid for and drove out to get me from Colorado, and I came back to Washington, but I found out I was pregnant 8 weeks into my jail sentence. And that was one of those things where it was like I was trying so hard to be loved, or to have something to love, or have a reason to feel love. And I remember my boyfriend that I had right before I was leaving, I was like so desperate to like take a piece of him or whatever. And it was like, da, da, da. And the irony was I did get pregnant, but it wasn't by him. It was by somebody else who was my first kind of lover there in Colorado Springs. And I kind of always held a candle to. So something strange, I got a goodbye present from him. And he turned out to be, you know, a father that never was around for my daughter. Years later, I think they actually have forged a relationship now, which is great. But then there's that drama that goes in there too.
And abandonment issues, I'm sure, for her that come up that didn't even really, there's.
Right. Yeah. So many abandonment issues around him and around my husband, who I was with, that like never adopted her. So there's all of these weird kind of like super codependent like ties and relationships, but nothing's ever really clean. I was pretty much what I called terminally single, would never put up with anybody or care about anybody for more than 90 days. But of course, I always ran after the bad boys who didn't want to be loved. And I met my husband at a bar. We went to a, you know, after hours party afterwards, and I was actually running from somebody else. But when I met him, I knew that was going to be my husband. I just knew. He ran a little bit. We came together real quick, real hard. We were married within a year and a half, I think 2 years maybe. We moved into a house together and lived there for about 6 months. And then we got married when I was 30. The joke is he thought I was going to jump out of a plane when I was 30 because I promised that at a Super Bowl party drinking. But then when we were getting married, I was turning 30, getting married, putting my daughter into kindergarten all at the same time. And he's like, "You're going to jump out of a plane?" I was like, "Hell no.
No.
No. Why would I do that?" But I also said,
nothing that sounds, nothing about that sounds like fun to me.
I also didn't think I would know you when I was 30 when I said that. So
yeah,
there's that. We had a pretty volatile relationship. Most of the time we were both pretty heavy drinkers. We had different schedules we used to joke about because he would drink early in the day and be hammered by 8 or 9. I'd be pissed. And so then I'd go out and I'd be out until 4. So we just were on different shifts. I was also not a blackout drinker. I had a little bit more stamina than that. So I always felt like I did it better. 5 years into our marriage, after an affair, he got sober first and then I followed. To my blessing and by the grace of God, I've never had a reason to drink again. I'm 17 years sober today, and that is one of the hugest gifts that came out of that marriage. And I think something that we didn't do ourselves a disservice with is we didn't intentionally take the steps to heal from that affair.
You just kind of moved on to another life, and
we just got sober. We were different people. We had a better life. And we just sort of brushed it under the rug.
But there's always something there that wasn't dealt with. Yeah.
And that actually didn't come to me until this twice. About a year and a half ago, I did an ayahuasca journey that it showed up in really, really surprisingly and hard, like a Mack truck. And then this last year in March, when I entered into the Radical Honesty program with Katrina, I found out there was so much anger still there buried that I didn't know was there. But in the ayahuasca journey, and it was actually after the second night, which was a very blissful night. The first night was a very dark night of the soul. And that's connected to the story of my dad passing, which I'll tell in a few minutes. But at the end of this second night, which was very, very blissful, surprisingly, toward the end of the session, I just got hit with the Mack truck of grief. And I didn't know where it came from. And that was and then it was like somebody just hit the button on the rewind, like on a tape recorder, and it goes, and then it played in slow motion, and I saw all the pain building and building and building and building and building and resentment of that pain that had never been healed, from that abandonment, from that betrayal. And I saw myself at the end of that tape recorder finally getting a chance to go, and that was leaving my marriage after 18 years, which that vision sort of like surprised me and like worried me, because I'm like, what does that mean? Am I still in love with my husband? And then I worked all the way through that. But really what it was is I got the chance to see how pervasive and hiding that was all the way through. Although I know that leaving my marriage at 18 years was absolutely a thing that I needed to do. I did not do it in a, in a spiteful manner, at least not cognizantly at that time. I think I did it fairly honorably, or at least as much as I could have done. But to have that come to me and realize where that was hiding and all that time was very, very enlightening. 18 years of marriage, and my marriage wasn't bad. I mean, we had a lot of really great times. We were awesome together in a lot of ways, and we're close now. The one thing that I really highlight or focus on is that I feel was true is that it finally became apparent that we were not able to be, and we're never going to be able to be our best and highest selves with each other. Because that level of codependency and the level of wounding he came in with and I came in with, and then we had a matching set of glasses for, didn't allow us to get safe and intimate with each other that was necessary for it to carry on for years. Sure. It was often a power struggle. I now see, looking back, in many ways where I probably didn't know how to allow him to be the man, although it was truly what I desired.
Sure.
And I don't mean a man in like control. I mean a man in standing up and showing up and being in support in his, confidence and saying, I'm the man. This is what we're going to do. He had a very hard time trusting his gut and going with his gut. So he was always second guessing what he was doing, which my brain doesn't really have the patience for a lot of deliberation. You know what I mean? Like I go with my gut and I know. And
well, I also think too with that, and this is why I always say to people, like looking at astrology and looking at, there's reasons why this stuff has existed for so long. And that when we start seeing the characteristics astrologically, and nothing should become dogma.
Right.
But when you look at the characteristics of a lion, and this is the astrological group from the collective that we belong to. And if you look at the female lions out in the jungle, like they just fucking handle everything.
Right.
Like they're just, and that's just their nature, to be filled with fire and just get stuff done. So I can, only imagine.
And on the other side of that, the male lion wants to sit around and fucking nap all day.
Well, the male lion doesn't necessarily, he just wants to be fanned and fed grapes.
Right. And that was absolutely my husband.
Yeah.
Love me. Don't get too close. Like, I want you to, put me on a pedestal over here and I'll be back in a little while.
And I'm loving watching you do everything.
Right. Because you're so awesome. We have such a great life, But then here's where the power struggle came in, is like letting me actually have the say or doing what you know what I mean? Like, so there was just always this, struggle and dance. Mm-hmm. So anyway, toward the end of that, there was one last decision that was made where I felt I and our marriage and the unit and our empire that we had been building were not being honored. And I was just done. And I said, it's time for me to go. Now that caused a lot of problems, in the months to come, because, his Leo pride couldn't allow the prospect that there was anything between us that wasn't right. And so it was much easier to make it about it being about somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I moved out and was in my own apartment. And for a while I had to endure being seen as, the scarlet letter A.
It's just came to me right now, was like, because you were talking about the first time that it was an affair, it was almost like, well, mirror back at you, and it's not even what you think it is, but it's that energetic mirror that's coming in almost to.
Right. And so there was later where I realized karmically, the stab was because I actually did have a relationship with somebody as I exited, but I didn't leave my husband for that person.
Right. But still the energetics there.
Right.
Very, very interesting how that plays out in our lives, especially when we're so deeply coupled with someone. Marriage, right. and we share, not to get too graphic, but it's this is true. We share fluids. Yeah. We share our lives in such an intimate way. Yeah.
Yeah. So it definitely, the pain got mirrored back and then got turned back on me, it was like, so there's just all of this stuff happening. So I was very, very much alone for months in the divorce. And got an opportunity to go very, very deep inside me, because there was nobody else for me to, to be with. My daughter and my parents and everybody sort of took his version of the story, and pushed me aside for a while. Later, it would all come out to where, everybody saw what they saw from their side and things and said, oh, okay. Yeah. Wow, I'm sorry for not supporting you. So, that kind of all came back around, but, and a lot of healing has happened, since then. And we're very close, now. But let's see, then I in our divorce, and actually the part of me getting to a place of knowing that I was not in my highest space in that marriage was running the political campaign. Mm-hmm. Running that campaign really put me on high alert to pay attention and find my authenticity and really decide who I was and who I wasn't. And so I don't think from that point going forward, I could continue to live any kind of lie. And, that's where that came in. So from that point, being single, then I went through the Tinder roller coaster and, some group therapy and, stepped onto many different kinds of spiritual paths to try to find out, what I'm about, what resonated for me. Had a few very, very powerful Akashic Records or past life clearings that helped, I think, neutralize out some charges of some very karmic patterns.
And for those of you that don't know, if you're not familiar with what Akashic Records are, it's basically that there is a place in the etheric that holds everyone's
like a library.
The like library of humanity, if you will.
Yeah, right.
And that there is, through meditations and different guided journeys, that we can go there and pick up pieces and put those stories to rest or to give us some understanding in this life. Because if you think we're energy and past, present, and future, nothing, it just changes shape. We don't die, we just change. Energy just never leaves, it just keeps transforming. That everything that's ever existed and will exist is energetics, and we are attached to that. And so if you come into this life and there's something that you need to release from those lifetimes, Akashic Record regressions and past life regressions are a tool that some people find very useful.
Yeah, it's like going to the library and picking out that book. Mm-hmm. I don't know or claim to know whether or not something has been past, present, or future.
Yeah.
Or if it's happening right now, or if, I'm not going to say I ever was Freya or Joan of Arc, but those archetypes, yes. I have energetic imprints, of somehow that guide my lessons.
Yeah. And that's a funny thing you say, Joan of Arc, because when I was, I've taken lots of classes on a lot of different, astrology, astronomy, numerology, I've studied hermetics, all sorts of stuff. And I remember sitting with a past life in a course where, people are talking about past lives, and which I find very interesting. And a great book, if you think that you're experiencing and are very confused with past life stuff, is a book called Many Lives, Many Masters.
Many Masters, yeah.
A great book to really put in. And it's a woman that's going to talk to her therapist. A great book if you're watching this and you think that you're experiencing and you've not really delved into past life or any of this stuff. Great book. But the one thing that I found was that
everybody in the class said they were
everybody in the class, and I just remember everybody in the class was like, I was Joan of Arc. And I remember thinking, okay, the one thing that I'm definitely learning here, and why now I think astrological signs like the month that you're born in, and these are all roadmaps, but that there's something about what you're picking up through your antenna and just the collective. And there's a reason why your energy would be very drawn to the spirit or the archetype of a Joan of Arc or Freya type. And so we use these tools to connect some dots in a roadmap not to, because I'm always a little leery of someone that when they say, "Oh, I was this person," I always say, and I live in Sedona, everybody.
So was I.
Yeah, this has. I hear some of the kookiest stories, which is why I'm not a new ager,
right,
at all. But I hear some of the kookiest stories with people that were, I was this and this and this and this, and I'm like, okay, I've heard 500 people now say that they were this person. So anyway, okay. Right. Little tangent there.
And, I mean, in the Akashic Records sense, if there are many, many different parallel existences, who knows? But maybe it was really just we were cast in that play at one time, right? There's so many different versions of.
And here's the thing. It's just there's no way of knowing. And so, that's where the word faith comes into. You just have faith. So I guess those people just have a lot of faith that they were all that person, or anyway, not to get too much on that tangent, but that is an interesting little.
But Akashic Records clearings is how I got to you, is how I met you, because I came to Susan Corolla in Sedona for, a clearing when I was still with my husband and a friend of ours. We were on a trip and they were like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but just pick me up in an hour and a half."
And Trish had a vision, or a friend had a vision of, and I get this a lot with Paladin, having a vision of a white horse, and white and black horse for Trish, and I have a white and black horse. We have 4 horses here. And I had a little place called the Gypsy Dome that was on Airbnb, which was my baby when my radio show from LA, we'd done it a couple years here and it just didn't really pan out. And so I didn't know what I was going to do in Sedona. And because if you don't have the entrepreneurial spirit, and if you're not driven for that sort of life, you're in a restaurant here. And I definitely was not like, "Oh, you know what? I think I'll just be at a restaurant till I'm 80 years old." I was like, no, this isn't going to happen. So for me, I'd heard about this thing called Airbnb, and my husband and I took a $500 bonus and threw a lot of elbow grease, because it was like a little dome. We called it the Gypsy Dome, and we lived in a geodesic dome. And I was like,
it was like the dome for the wee people, like me.
The wee people. So I won't go off into the dome, but Trish came to stay with me, and I just instantly.
Well, and it had its own serendipity, because I came the first time because of the vision that Kaylin and I had. Somebody from high school who was tapping into me said they saw me flying around the Red Rock in a white dress, and I said, "Have you ever seen Sedona?" And they was like, "No." I said, "Google it." It was like, "Holy shit!" And then we went on Airbnb and found your place. But he had bailed on the trip, remember? And you were kind enough to let me out of 2 of my 3 nights that I booked, because I had a free place to stay, because now I had to pay for my rental car. Mm-hmm. And when I came for that clearing, a couple months later, I had let KJ from Canada, the man who I love that is no longer with us, he listened to it and he says, "I don't know why I know this work. I've never heard of it before." He says, "But this is your work and you're supposed to go." And that's when I reached out to Susan and said, "Hey, do you mentor at all?" And she says, "Well, there's actually a training coming up in September." And then that's when I tried to find you, and the Arizona thing, the Airbnb stuff was down.
Yeah, and it was my house that was on front of the paper. So the part of me, the activist, and I have background with Dr. Ron Paul and free market economy and sharing economy, and I was really active in, what is my place in the world as far as bringing in abundance. So I had probably told, obviously, someone that I irritated, but I was telling the activist in me was like, "Yeah, tell everybody about it." And private property rights, do what you want with your house. So what if they say you can't rent by the night? Do it anyway. And that's just, and yeah.
There you go.
It was my house that ended up on the front of the paper, and then it was my house that had a cease and desist in the front yard. And so when Trish came to stay with me that time, she had to find me, and I was like, I just had to book her privately, and thank God she still had my number. Yeah, because then we got to
and even then I was there for like almost 10 days, and we didn't even until like the second to last day when we were standing out in the horse shit, you know, with Paladin, and you were telling me your story and your dream of, you know, facilitating sacral chakra healing, you know, and I just, everything in my body just tingled, and I said, can I help you craft your culture for that? And
it was so serendipitous because I had parked Sedona Sacred Alchemy. I had parked Brightest Future Foundation. So these things were, even the way Paladin came into my world, like all these things were happening, but there was so much in my head. So when Trish sat down with me and was like, okay, let's take it from here out here. And she really, and I do think that it's because she had run for office that she really was able to understand the conflict I was in about being a human on this planet. And we're talking about currency. I happen to be, you know, really big into trying to talk about the Federal Reserve and how our money and what it's connected to, and that if we're all connected to this currency, like we have to start looking at the Federal Reserve. We have to, like, what am I going to? How
the hell do I do a business when all of that makes me want to like cut my wrist?
Like I can't even align with this planet, but I don't want to go live in the woods and dig a hole and shit in it.
How do I live?
How do I do this, Trish? How do I fucking
well,
yeah.
And Airbnb screwed me, and I was like, Remember when I said, what if Airbnb is just forcing you to look at a different model of, you know, which actually is kind of what we are looking at now. I mean, 4 years later, coming to fruition, having people come on your property who are coming for the specific purpose of healing that sacral chakra trauma and aligning themselves whatever their true north is. Like, it's now coming to fruition when back then it kind of forced you to be off the beam, forced us to look at a different way of pulling people in.
And it forced me to, like, and here we are this many years later, it's forced me to really look at what divine timing is as opposed to Kim's timing.
Right.
Because Kim is like, I mean, I did, you know, barrel racing and just, you know, I've always really more identified with my masculine side than my feminine side. And that's changed as I've gotten older, but definitely I have more of a, you know, divine timing. No, I have a goal,
and I
have a vision, and y'all are just fucking with my vision. And so why are you doing, you know?
and as much as you're like that, and that, you know, impatience and that drive and fervor that I share with you, I had to learn divine timing, because every time I came there, remember, I had some thought in my mind of what was going to happen. It was like, and never did it turn out like I thought it was going to.
No, she realized, I think, I had been here. I mean, I live here, so it's Slowdona. So you're either going to slow down and kind of go with the flow. And it was, a lot of times it was about Trish wanting to go out and ride and be with the horses. But a lot of times it was weather wasn't conducive. There were just things that kind of came up. So then I finally got her out here. And when I got her on Paladin, she had a whole nother experience with horse medicine that she wasn't expecting.
Right. He brought
Callie had her in tears.
Like, nope, I don't believe you. I'm not going anywhere. Yeah, that was a humbling experience. And I started understanding the importance, you know, of the horses, and the fact that it's like, I was not in alignment with myself, and he wasn't going to do anything for me until he knew I was where I needed to be. And wow.
They're so telepathic. They know what you're thinking and feeling before you do. So if Paladin, if you're not aligned and you're in your knowingness in your core, he knows you haven't been on a horse, if ever, and he's happy just to sit there and frustrate you and figure it out.
Yeah, brought me to tears.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's I mean,
Pally.
I know. So yeah, marriage parents. Oh, my parents just passed this last year.
Yeah.
A year ago, together about 3 months apart. And that was a really huge gift for me to usher my dad to the other side. Because my dad and I had a very, very volatile soul contract that got brought to my attention a few years back. And becoming aware of that and the villain hero contract that we had signed up for, and having a few sessions with people that shared with me, you know, your dad's seeing behind the veil. Like when he's seeing behind the veil, he knows how much love is there, and just know that that's happening. And so it sort of was softening me toward the end of being able to have compassion for him, because he had done a lot of things over the years that just pushed me away, and made me not very, very excited to interact with him or my mom. And so literally messaging with a new friend on Messenger, walking all the way up to the hospital, being told that my dad was waiting for me and that he wanted my permission and that he had something to say, and, you know, everything, and walking in and commanding the 8 people, bouncing him around like a rag doll to just quit, you know, stop, get out, and have that last, you know, 15, 20 minutes with him, just, you know, totally thanking him, letting him understand that I understood, letting him know that I understood, you know, the hard contract we entered into, and that he executed it perfectly, that I got what I needed, that he was a great grandfather. There was nothing else to say. He's not leaving me with any, you know, resentment or heartbreak. And I know that timing was so serendipitous, because he passed 2 days before I went on my ayahuasca journey. And that first night, he met me, and he took me through that dark night of the soul and the treacherous hell that's self-created, by control and fear. And we went through that together. And it was a very, very deep, dark, treacherous thing.
Yeah.
And then the next night, Mama didn't kick my ass again. The grandmother was very, very kind to me the next night, and I got to feel the alchemization, of being one with nature, and alchemizing all of my cells, and allowing in my sexuality, and, you know, just kind of effervescently becoming, you know, who I'm meant to be. And I go back to that feeling and that reminiscence often, you know, to remind myself, you know, this is what I'm here for, because my divine purpose and my divine mission is to be on my true north and help others find their true north.
Sure.
Trail.
Sure. And I think that's, you know, that's the amazing thing about death. For me, when my mom died, that's what opened me up to my dimensional existence. I couldn't deny that there was something, it was so profound. And I just went on this quest to find answers, and, you know, that have led me here. But it was death that started that journey. It has just this amazing way of opening us up to, because I just know they don't leave us. They just, just the energetics change, but they don't leave us.
And it's so interesting, because there's so much more freedom to love at a level that seems impossible on the human level, right? Because
I think too, especially if you've had if you've had a relationship that has had issues with connection and abandonment and rejection, I think that we finally get the love and feel the love that we wanted our whole life. And so for those of you that have family and that you feel love, you're very blessed. Yeah. You're very, very blessed. And I understand why you would cherish your family, and that it's beautiful. But for those of us that have experienced complete disconnect and felt abandonment, or felt really like an orphan, and family hasn't really worked out that way for us, death has this way of bringing in something that we always wanted and didn't feel deserving of, But then now that there's no 3D interference, we finally feel all of that. Yeah.
I like that. The 3D interference is gone, because I'm able to feel and know the presence of both my mom and my dad in ways now that I didn't, wasn't allowed in the 3D. So, so I used the money from their house to buy a place in Bisbee, originally with my red cape on to save my daughter from a not so great situation. And I got really deep lessons in that one last time of it's not my job to fix anybody else's life. And although sometimes people ask for it, they really don't want it. And I've had to release her to her own life, and and grieve those relationships as I thought they were going to be. And now I am looking at letting go of my 18-year other marriage, which was my business. So this last, I looked back the other day, and this was, you knew that this was a kind of a rainy time a couple weeks ago in Bisbee. I just spent 2 days just really, really grieving. And not so much grieving like the loss of the relationship, the loss of my parents, loss of my daughter, those things, but grieving the part of me that was in those experiences.
Sure.
Really feeling who I was in my attachment to those, and grieving that part of me. And I think that that's what's been missing in that process for me up until this point. So I'm entering into 2020, I think, with a whole lot of freedom and gratitude. And
I think all these things, as we've progressed on our True North journey, and as this adventure has unfolded and all the serendipity has happened, and we can kind of look back at the dots and we can say, okay, for me, not to me. And
that's my motto.
Yeah. And we can really see where, look, this is no gurus. This is a truth frequency, a truth magic that
new hashtag.
What's that?
New hashtag, truth frequency.
Truth frequency. That this is something that we all carry within ourselves, and getting to that truth frequency and that truth magic within ourselves isn't really about anybody else. It's about it's a divine communication, a divine timing, a divine mission. And when you make that a priority, when that is your reason every morning, and you're willing to show up and do the work, legions of help show up. I mean, since my mom's died, I can't even begin to tell you how many times even now I look out at the horses and I'm just like, this is my life. Granted, some things fell away that I was convinced would never go away, but they did. And that's what 2019 for me has been about. And I think for you as well, is I don't think we ever stop bushwhacking our True North trail.
God, let's hope not. I mean, I hope it gets a little easier sometimes. We always want a little ease.
And ebb and flow. But once we know that there is a true north within us, an inner guidance system. I mean, when Christ was born, it was the North Star. There's something that our antenna connects to, and it's that highest God, creator. For some people it's universe, and we're coming into such an interesting time. I think I'm going to save that story because we're going to do our energy update, and I'm going to save it for that because I can feel myself going off on a tangent, and I don't want to do that. But that is, I've seen you go through, and both of us together, and I think that's why we're committed to doing this work together, is that it's for us, not to us. And we're here to support each other. We're here to support the people that come here to experience this and experience what horses bring to this equation, because they're a somatic experience.
Yes.
And going out in nature.
And it's my opinion and experience that healing is the most powerful when it is on the somatic level. You can talk therapy something all you want for 2 decades, and it is not going to. In fact, I think words and frequencies almost like power things in even more, and like stack up on that scar tissue. And somatic healing is in an instant. It is simple. It happens on the cellular level, and that can only happen with horses and nature and God. Like, it's
10-4.
There it is.
Roger that. I have experienced and seen things, literally, like, if I'm not careful, I'll start crying because, I got to hold it back a little because of the things that I've seen and what I've experienced. And I grew up on a ranch and had a horse growing up. So my horse was my best friend. So I have seen Paladin and all the horses, but I have seen Paladin change children's lives, people that were coming out of suicide, my life. So when I talk about healing trauma, I take it very seriously because it's up to the individual. But I want you in and out. I don't want you on a list.
Which is back to our no gurus, and we're not a life coach. I'm not here to tell you how to do your life. I'm here to hold space and bushwhack the trail for you to find the place that you can bring in your own somatic healing.
Yes. And, if I believe that a lot of this, I think most people can heal themselves. But if you're in a place where and then there's a place for doctors and different things like that. It's a sliding scale. But I think with the internet, the way that it is now, with the resources, especially when we're talking about post-traumatic stress, complex post-traumatic stress, I think a lot of borderlines are misdiagnosed, and it's CPTSD. I think most of the cluster B, unless you're high on the traits and you're full on MPD, or then that's a different category. But for most people that are in the range of just living on this fucking planet, have trauma, and it can be helped. And I am convinced that horses, civilization's built on their back, and now we see they've got another job, and that's to heal from all of our goofballery and all the shit we did by building civilization. And so here we are, and here they are,
full circle,
and they're holding space for us, and they're just saying, okay, humans, we're here, we're holding space for you. And it's just amazing. So even with the beamer mat, the tuning forks, the things that I work with, the reason I work with them is because I've seen them work on the horses and with the humans with the horses. And so, Trish, you have been, by you coming out into the field that day and with Craft It, and with the work that we've done and just the time that we've spent together, and both of us on this True North journey. So, then True North, like, we're just sitting down brainstorming and these things happen. And here we are now, getting ready to really a new decade. I'm now, we're both in the 50 stage of our life, which I can't believe is like,
the second half is really awesome. I promise you.
I believe that. There's a few things I don't dig about it. There's a few things that, but there's a lot of things I didn't dig about the other time in my life when I was under 50. So it's all relative, right? But for us now, getting ready to head off into this new decade, 2020.
Wow.
2020 on this True North journey in a 4-year with a unicorn that's born on 444. All these serendipitous moments, all the healing that we've watched each other go through, sharing our stories. You exemplify True North. You exemplify True North also because our shame dies when our stories are told in safe places. Our story is our glory. And so many of us you know, like I said, we all get some trauma, some shame, and all these things that are like, no, come here to experience this, share, and then move through and get on to the best, biggest adventure of your life.
Right.
You know? And you exemplify True North. You're such an inspiration. I adore you.
Slacker with you.
I can't wait to smooch your face when you get here, you and Sonora. So Trish and I are going to spend, well, not Christmas. You're coming the day after Christmas?
No, I'm coming.
23rd. That's right.
23rd.
So we were supposed to spend Thanksgiving together, but things got changed. So I might actually even go get a tree. If I can find one, even a fake one at the thrift store, and it's like half off Saturday.
Because our best present needs to be under the tree, and it's not going to be shitty socks.
That's right. This is going to be the year for the best, biggest, you know, looking at the next 10 years, you know, 20 years and 30 years, but definitely this, let's just start with 10, this decade, that the best decade with the best Christmas present under the Christmas tree. And yeah, no shitty socks.
Us.
That's right.
Yeah.
It is. It's
really
us.
nice that we've been able to find us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to thank you because, you know, having good friends and having a support system is so important. And I don't have a large, I'm quite independent. I'm quite solitary in my life. But I got to tell you, I have the most incredible female friends who haven't pushed me through my healing journey this year. They've just listened and just been like, hey, you okay today? Yeah. And if I just don't even feel like talking, they're not like, hey, you got to talk to me, answer your phone. They're like, okay, Kim's just hanging with her horses and her dogs. She's a very solitary person who doesn't require a lot of, I don't require a lot in that regard. But the friends that I do have, if I'm on a day where, and it's bringing me tears, you know, like today I do need your help. Today I do need you to just let me be kind of a mess.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for you, Trish. You're such an inspiration. Such an inspiration. And there's really, well, there's nobody that I would want to really, nobody that I would want to do this True North Unicorn Way adventure with. You know, and
good,
I will say,
me.
What's that?
I said good, because you don't get a choice. It's you.
Because I will say, for anybody watching this that is looking at you know, healing and wanting to find out more about True North and working on this journey, is that I am very selective about who I will engage in this sort of energetic experience with. First off, if you know horse owners, and everybody's always saying, can I ride your horse? Can I ride your horse? This is about as long of a list of who I will let ride my horse. Right. Now, to come out and do energy work and healing work is different, but you know, because the energetics of it, are so intense that when somebody asks me if they, you know, can I ride your horse? It's like, Trish can ride my horse, you know. And again, the energetic work is different than like taking somebody out on the trail and riding my horses. I'm just very, very selective about who I will have do any sort of body work on me. And Trish, I've watched her do her energy sessions, which is why I have no problem working with her, because she handles a little bit, you know, her part in this is a little different than mine, but together they make such a synergistic, we make a really good synergistic team when it comes to getting in and getting out and getting on the trail and following that True North. So
thank you for being my somatic sister.
Yeah, and thank you, Creator, for bringing us together. And I imagine somewhere back before we were here, we were like, hey, we're going to get together later on at this point in our life. You know?
I'll come back to pick you up later.
Yeah. Yeah. See you when we get down there, girl. Yeah.
Well, thank you for letting me share my story. I'm honored to be bushwhacking this trail with you, and I can't wait for us to be welcoming many, many, many people down the trail.
Yeah, it's going to be a really, really fun adventure. It's already been a fun adventure.
I know.
But I think there's something exciting about like a new decade and a new year, even though, I mean, you know, it's really just another day, right? I mean, but there's something that happens inside of our noggins when it's like, oh, a new year. It does feel like kind of a fresh start, right? Especially with a new decade. And because it's a 4-year, which is a manifesting number, and then we've got Pally at 444. So, and that's another thing that I want to say about True North is that your inner guidance is going to be different than ours. You know, right. just because her and I, you know, like we love the 444 and we love this and we love that, and we kind of have
ours.
We have dots that connect for us for whatever reason. You're going to find your own dots. You're going to connect your own dot with spirit, with your creator. You're going to get into your own clear communication. And then legions of help come in to support you on your journey. We share ours.
When everyone has had a chance to calibrate their own compass.
Yeah. So we just share our story, you know, that's why, like, that's not going to be your story, you know, but when we start sharing our stories, it sure is fun when we find out, like, oh yeah, I totally get that one. Yeah. Well, here's mine for that one, and here's mine for that one. And then we start sharing, and before you know it, it's a whole lot of kumbaya going on.
All right, I love you.
All right. So I'm going to go feed horses, and then we're going to come back and do a little bit more. I think we'll do our weekly thing, right?
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Love you.
See you on the trail.
I love you. Bye.